Alrighty, so little news of the week episode on this Wednesday evening, and we're gonna get to it straight away by talking about how the MLS schedule will indeed going to be released tomorrow. So, there's been reports saying that it was going to release on December 19th, although, the sources was a little bit murky, but now it's pretty much confirmed because not only Stephen Goff, one of the top analysts in MLS, basically reported that a couple of days ago, but a couple of teams have also said that they're going to be releasing their schedule tomorrow. Teams like the Chicago Fire and Sporting KC, I check on their Twitter page saying that they're going to release the schedule tomorrow, and I'm assuming pretty much every team is going to do so. So yeah, should be very excited to see how the schedule is gonna be tomorrow, and there's no doubt that I'm pretty sure for all the Western Conference teams, they're going to be excited, not just because of what their team is going to play, but most importantly, who's going to win the sweepstake in terms of having to face Inter Miami at home. I mean, it's always a very interesting kind of perspective of which Western Conference team are the lucky ones to win that sweepstake itself, especially for these Western Conference front office too. I mean, they would really hope that they win the sweepstake because most likely they're going to charge their fans a hefty amount of money because that's how it goes whenever Inter Miami play against any team, especially a Western Conference team. And I expect if they do play against a Western Conference team, it might be moved to a bigger stadium than the soccer specific stadium. And as I'll mention in just a bit, we're already seeing one team that is going to be moving to an NFL stadium when they face Inter Miami. Now, moving on. So, Atlanta United, they have named Chris Henderson as their new sporting director. Now, this was just about a couple of days ago when Chris Henderson announced that he was going to depart with from Inter Miami, and this also is not a big surprise that he decided to go to Atlanta. Consider it feels like we're getting the Garth Lagerwey and Chris Henderson duel once again. We saw it during the time with Seattle and how successful that is. So this is not a big surprise that Garth Lagerwey decided to hire his old buddies back. And not to mention, I think, for Chris Henderson, as much as I don't think he's given enough credit of the job that he's done with Inter Miami. I mean, I know that people will say, well, that team was already good because of the fact that Messi and friends make that team good. Don't forget, when you look beyond the Messi and his friends producing the great resort over and over again throughout the season, the fun soccer that Inter Miami play. They have a really good supporting cast, and a big part of that supporting cast is because Chris Henderson has done a really good job in terms of building the team. Now, from what I also heard, it seems like he's kind of got less and less said in terms of some of the transfer, which kind of frustrates him a little bit to a point where, yeah, I'm not going to be part of this project anymore. I'm going to be going to my old buddy in Garth Lagerway just a little bit up north in Atlanta, and there's no doubt this is a great news for Atlanta United as well because again, both Garth Lagerwey and Chris Henderson, they were two of the mastermind in terms of what made the Seattle Sounders such a good team, and there's no doubt that Atlanta, if they can get these transfer right and they can rebuild and carry the momentum that they had with an unexpected playoff run, a case that unfortunately those famous last words will once again be said next season as well for this Atlanta United team, and that is Atlanta might be back next season. Now, the Philadelphia Union, they are report to hire Bradley Carnell as their new head coach. So, I kind of had a feeling that Bradley Carnell probably was going to be picked up by someone. I wouldn't say he's a bad head coach. I mean, I know that St. Louis fans might have says otherwise, but I think one of the reasons why Bradley Carnell kind of failed during his time with St. Louis is that eventually he didn't kind of had a plan B. They kind of figure out the energy drink soccer kind of style that he played with St. Louis City, and while it was very effective because nobody expected it was going to work, and it turns out to do so well, and eventually it kind of fall apart. Now going to the Union, a team that we know that there's going to be a big shoes to fill in terms of what Jim Kern left this team, and especially what he has built this team to be a contender year after year besides last season. So yeah, the pressure is definitely going to be there for Bradley Carnell. There's no doubt that even though this is a Union team that I think they are heading through a bit of a rebuilding period, they're definitely tearing down their old core and trying to rebuild a little bit. There are still going to be some expectation, especially they haven't really entirely got rid of their entire core yet. There's still some good attacking pieces that Bradley Carnell can work with. That can definitely make this Union team to be a decent one. but obviously he would need some help as well, and that's kind of one of the things that I think, as much as you would think that the union job is very lucrative to have, you got to remember this is also the same front office that refused to spend money, and they while they have done a really good job in terms of building their academy and you most part of that to be successful, they have not spent a whole ton of money, and most of the time they have hit well when it comes to making those signings, but you just kind of had a sense that that's not always going to last forever. Especially recently, they haven't really done that in terms of improving the team. I mean, there's a reason why this team eventually failed last season. When you run it back for so long, and the fact that you don't make an improvement while other team does, more times than not, you're going to be fall behind the league, and I think the Union basically a victim of that. Now, going back to Atlanta United, so besides the fact that they named Chris Henderson as their new sporting director, there's also a report that Ronnie Delia could be their new head coach. So Ronnie Delia actually is now coaching in Saudi Arabia. Apparently, his time in Belgium was kind of a failure, that he actually eventually now coached for a team in Saudi Arabia. Obviously, that didn't work out either. So there's a chance he could come back to MLS. And Ronnie Delia, we know what he did with NYCFC, and there's no doubt that he is an MLS proven head coach that can definitely get talent to the team. And not to mention, he's going to be in a situation that is going to be very similar to his last job. That NYCFC job, you always are under the microscope, and you're always under the hot seat. And for Atlanta United, it's the same thing. This is a team that is a very proud franchise and have a lot of expectations. So I do feel like this could fit Ronnie Delia well, consider he did relatively well in that pressure cooking situation in NYCFC, and eventually got the team in MLS Cup. So we'll see whether or not, if that, of course, indeed is the choice, even though, I was kind of surprised Atlanta decided not to get Jim Curtin. In fact, I'm surprised nobody has been thinking about getting Jim Curtin. Jim Curtin is literally probably the most lucrative name out there in the head coaching market, and I would be surprised if he decide if no one decided to pick him up, and he's not going to be coaching next year, unless he just says that he wanted to just take a year off before getting back in the head coaching reign. Now, speaking of head coach, there was a lot of head coaching news this week. So there's a report suggesting that Wilfred Nancy originally was going to be potentially becoming the new manager and the new head coach of San Etienne, but now there's conflicting sources that it's not going to happen. Now, obviously, there's no doubt Columbus is trying every way to keep Wilfred Nancy. Wilfred Nancy is probably right now the best head coach in MLS, and there's no doubt that he has been linked with a lot of job in Europe, because as we said about players, whenever they perform well, they can get a lucrative deal out of Europe. The same goes for head coaches and managers as well. If they do relatively well in this league, especially those are relatively young, just like Wilfred Nancy is. There could be a chance that there's a lot of team that could be looking for his service, and we'll see whether or not if Columbus can hold him onto him as long as possible. There's no doubt that eventually I do think that Wilfred Nancy would love to go back to France and coach a team there, but Columbus is trying every way to keep him. And especially for Wilfred Nancy, I think he still have some unfinished business as well. I mean, yes, this Columbus Crew team has been very successful under Wilfred Nancy, making multiple MLS or making multiple Cup final, making an MLS Cup appearance, winning multiple trophy as well. But you just kind of sense that he want to continue his legacy and continue to build the dynasty, the kind of era that this Columbus Crew team is enduring right now. So I don't think he's gonna be going back to Europe and going back to France anytime soon, unless if a team is gonna be putting such a lucrative offer that Columbus simply just cannot refuse to ask. Now, moving on in terms of next news, and now talk about signing. We did have a DP signing that was made, as the New York Red Bulls has officially signed Eric Maxime Choupo-Moting as their new designated player. What a career it's been for Eric Maxime Choupo-Moting. His career has just been one of the oddest and strangest career you can ever imagine. I mean, I still remember he was a guy that was kind of a flop when he was with Stoke City, and that was back when Stoke City was still in the Premier League. And then he went to PSG after that. Didn't really quite worked out so well until it kind of did. And then he went to Bayern Munich and won a Champions League as well. It's been a wild kind of career that he's been going through. He's been going through the highs of highs and lows of lows of his career as well. Now, that being said, getting him as a designated player, this is definitely a bold move and kind of a surprising move as well. I mean, he's not a young player. He's kind of a guy that is approaching his mid 30s, and not to mention, he's also a guy that has some problem in terms of staying on the pitch and has been injury riddled. So yeah, this is a bit of a gamble for the Red Bulls to decide to send it spend a DP player on a guy that again is kind of near the end of his prime as well. But we'll see whether of course it would work out. And there's no doubt that when I first heard of this rumor of the Red Bulls potentially signing Choupo-Moting, I think it could be a good signing for them, but not on a DP contract. I thought a TAM contract would be worth more, but apparently they upgrade that to a DP contract. And you also kind of wonder, so which DP player is going to be have to brought down in terms of the TAM contract, because I think the Red Bulls have maxed out in terms of their DP signing. And from what I heard, it seems like Dante Van Zier might be that player that could be bought down to a TAM contract as well. Now, DC United, they have acquired Lucas McNulton in exchange for 150,000 general allocation money to Nashville SC. I think this is a good signing for both parties because, you know, Lucas McNulton, he did break through that Nashville side. He was kind of a depth player, but, you know, because of the way that Nashville kind of suffered a bit of an injury bug in the back line, he stepped in. He looked decent as well, and I expect he's going to get more playing time now that he has joined this DC team that desperately needs some defensive help. And for 150,000 GAM for a depth defensive player, I think that's a fair amount for both DC to pay to Nashville and a fair amount for Nashville to receive as well. Now, FC Dallas have signed defensive midfielder Romero off of free agency. Now, I have no idea who exactly this guy is, other than the fact that he's kind of near almost kind of, I wouldn't say past his prime, but right near the tail end of his prime career. And when we talk about a lot of MLS teams decide to sign South American players, usually those are young South American players, not guys that have been getting close to their 30s, and that of course is the case. So we'll see whether or not if this signing, of course, would turns out to do so well. But now moving on, talk about more free agency signings. So the New England Revolution, they have signed Jackson Yule off of free agency, and literally a couple of minutes after this was announced, the San Jose Earthquakes have re-signed Link Lima off of free agency. So you talk about the New England Revolution and the San Jose Earthquakes. Seems like they just kind of reverse places this season. It seems like they basically decided to trade players to each other. And I understand because of the way that, you know, Bruce Arena is trying to get as much of his New England guys as possible, but I didn't think it would be the other way around as well. But that being said, you know, Jackson, you know, I talked about how he had a decent start to his career with the Quakes, but unfortunately, he kind of started to become a liability, especially when he become a captain to this team, and not to mention started to be getting more involved with the U.S. Men's national team. What did I hear this story before? How a Quakes player started to suffer a bit of a decline after they joined the national team. It feels like it always happened with the Quakes. Whenever there's a player that is on the national team radar, and then once he comes back, he just never looks the same. And that's exactly what Jackson Yule is. But you know, the Quakes getting Nick Lima. Again, it feels like it's a nostalgia kind of signing because, you know, he is a former homegrown, but he's nowhere near the player that he was when he broke uh, the scene with the Quakes. And there's no doubt, I think this is more of a depth signing. Now for New England, the same. I think Jackson Yule might be a depth signing, though it could be a replacement in terms of the some of the player that New England actually gave the Quakes in terms of the midfield position. If you for no, if you not don't forget they traded both Ian Harks, Mark Anthony Kay, and Dave Romney to them, and you know the previous two names are pretty much those two names that are the one that Jackson Yule was gonna try to replace in that spot. But again, it's very interesting to see how for whatever reason both New England and the Quakes are just basically trading pieces left and right. I mean, I wouldn't mind if the Quakes would get Carlos Hill as well if the Quakes decided to send Hernan Lopez there. Although I think that might be a little bit of an extreme cases. Though I mean I wouldn't mind that too because you know as good as Hernan Lopez was last season, Carlos Hill is one of the top number 10 in the league, and that would be a great piece to get if the Quakes can do so. And let's also not forget the Quakes are still also linked with Brendan Vasquez as well. I mean, if that is going to be kind of a player to replace Jeremy Avosi, that is a huge upgrade considering what Vasquez can bring to the table, and is a guy that is literally on the radar of the U.S. men's national team as well. Now, moving on, the Houston Dynamo, they have signed Jimmy Maurer off of free agency. So this feels like it's kind of a move that the Dynamo are making, thinking that, eventually if Steve Clark decided to retire or he get injured, then they have a good backup option in Jimmy Maurer. I mean, I thought Jimmy Maurer did really well during his time with Dallas. I was kind of surprised that Dallas decided not to keep him, but nevertheless, the Dynamo scoop in to try to get that. It feels like it's either Houston and Austin player that always tends to love to sign former FC Dallas player. I mean, we see it with Austin when they decide to get Carter O'Brien off of them as well, and he seems to Fry doing his time with Austin as well, and we'll see whether or not that's going to be the case for Jimmy Mao, who I don't think he's going to be the starter. I think Steve Clark is going to continue to play. He's probably got a couple of years left in the tank before maybe Jimmy Mao might be taking over that spot once Steve Clark maybe decide to hang up his boots. Now, speaking of hang up his boots, so we thought that Alejandro Bedoya was gonna maybe hang up his boots this season. He was out of contract. Maybe this is kind of finally the year for the long time Union captain to step aside. No, instead he has resigned to a new contract. It's a new 1 year deal. So again, with all the pieces that I've talked about, the Union have kind of got rid of. It seems like they're going to keep their leader, and am not surprised by that. I mean, whether Ali Bedoya is on the field or off the field, he is an absolute amazing locker room president, and he's a guy that I wouldn't be surprised he could be a head coach in this league in the near future. He has that presence in mind as well, and especially he's also been reported to get a front office position as well after his playing career. Yeah, there's no doubt that he is a guy that I think this is definitely good for the Union to keep a guy like that. As much as I know they're going for a bit of a transitional year, it will definitely help when they do still have their leader that really provide maybe just one last good season for the Union in what could be a transitional year, and it could be a year where they might start building a new core to keep themselves competitive. Now, the Columbus Crew, they have also re-signed Evan Bush to a new contract extension. No surprise there. Evan Bush, I think he might be, I think now a third string goalkeeper, because I think Nick Hagen is the second string for Columbus. But now there's a report that it seems like Nick Hagen could potentially move to somewhere else as well. And Evan Bush, just like Ali Bedoya, a veteran president, a good president in the locker room as well. So not surprised that we saw him getting a new contract extension as well. And then we also saw a couple of players that is leaving MLS and going to somewhere else. We start with Minnesota United decided to transfer Miguel Tapias to Chivas for $1 million. And I think this move makes sense considering Miguel Tapias, he really fell off in the middle of the season and just kind of lost his starting spot as a result. And considering the fact that they got him for pretty much almost nothing for Pachuca and able to make some money out of that, I think it's good business for Minnesota. And considering, again, this is a team that I think heading into the offseason, besides the desperate number 6 position that they need to fix, they still need some defensive help. And I think this is kind of a sign that they are going to start reshaping their back line once again and continue to improve like they did last season, having a surprising season and even a more surprising playoff run as well. And then NYCFC have decided to transfer Nicolas Acevedo to Brazilian Sierra side Esporte Club Bahia. I'm surprised seeing that this, of course, is the case, consider Nicolas Acevedo never really got a lot of minutes with NYCFC, and just kind of feel like maybe this is a change of scenery for him going to the Brazilian Serie A, and we'll see whether or not if he can do well there. Now, moving on, in terms of news that's not related to transfer rumors and signings. So, the Columbus Crew, they announced that they're going to be playing against Inter Miami in Cleveland on April 14th. Now, obviously, there's been a lot of backlash in terms of this move, and it's understandable why Crew fans are absolutely upset about this, because this is clearly a money grabbing move. I mean, I know Columbus have basically said that they want to Marcus Northeast Ohio, and they want the area around Cleveland to have some of the fans that maybe support the Crew as well to get a chance to see their team live. But let's be honest, the whole reason why they decided to play in Cleveland is mainly because they want to make sure that they have like at least 70,000 plus to watch them play against Inter Miami. Now, for those of you wondering, well, why couldn't they just host it at Ohio Stadium? I mean, they could have just done that, and in some way, it could be similar to what we see with Sporting KC used to play, going back to the stadium they used to play when they started their time, and I think that could be a good idea as well. But I also heard the fact that Ohio Stadium, the Horseshoe, they're actually hosting an NHL Stadium Series game, not too long before this. And yeah, when you decide to put an ice ring in a football field, it does take time for it to do well, and they're kind of worried that maybe it won't be so well. And not to mention, the pitch at Ohio Stadium, it is definitely much smaller than it is where they're going to be playing at the Brown Stadium in Cleveland. But yeah, again, that being said, I can understand the backlash in terms of crew fan. Their supporter group also made a statement that they're not happy about this move. But at the end of the day, this is kind of what we're seeing right now in the league. We're gonna see teams that are gonna be moving to bigger stadium just so that they can host Inter Miami and get some quick buck out of that. And this is also the reason why I'm saying tomorrow is the day where pretty much all these Western Conference teams are just pretty much licking their chops and just almost praying that they can win the sweepstake in terms of hosting the Inter Miami at home, because not only that's a great thing for the area of the team that's based in to get to host the greatest player of all time. But also that really helps in terms of the revenue as well. I mean, there's going to be a lot of moolah to be made if Inter Miami is going to be coming to near you to a Western Conference team. With that being said, moving on in terms of the next news. So Inter Miami, they also will be playing a game at an NFL stadium as well, and it's actually not that far from now. They're going to be playing against Club America in Las Vegas. It's going to be at Allegiant Stadium where the Raiders play on January 18th for a preseason match. Now this season, there's no doubt the Inter Miami are being a little bit smarter when it comes to where they decide to choose their preseason tour. They're not going on that world tour we saw last season, which that was kind of crazy to see, and surprisingly, it didn't really quite hurt the team that much in terms of that world tour that they had. I thought that was going to really hurt the team heading into the season because all the travel that they endured. But that being said, there's no doubt that they are going to be playing in the preseason, at least closer to home, but they're still going to be playing again in NFL Stadium, because whether it's a preseason game or a regular season game, anytime when Messi and friends is near your area, it's there's going to be good crowd there, and there's going to be fans that is interested in there. And there's no doubt that when you face against Cuba America, arguably the biggest team right now, not just in Mexico but in North America itself. Yeah, it's gonna draw a lot of fans. It's probably gonna be a sold out crowd in that game, even though if it's just gonna be a preseason match, and also maybe could be a little preview in terms of what we could see in the CONCACAF Champions Cup as well, because I believe both of these teams are going to be in the CONCACAF Champions Cup next year as well. Now, moving on, the MLS Super Draft. So it is announced that it will not be broadcast this year. Now, I understand that the MLS Super Draft has kind of got a little bit irrelevant. I'm myself is kind of one of those person that says that. But that being said, I am a little surprised that it's not broadcasting this year. Especially, you have Apple TV. You could have just broadcast it there as well, whether the interest is there for not. But yeah, there's no. I mean, this is the first time we have seen that they won't broadcast this year. And again, as much as I said that it's kind of a little bit irrelevant, there are still some hidden gems in the Super Draft. We have seen players coming out of the Super Draft that has breaked out down in MLS as well. So I don't think the Super Draft is all of a lost cause as well. In fact, I might be doing a video in the future looking back at some of the Super Draft in recent years and see how those players went out, and I'll definitely mention some names that are going to be very familiar, because you would know that this guy turns out to do very well in the league, comes from the MLS Super Draft. And then MLS have also said that they're looking to make season pass more accessible, and what that means is that next year they are going to sort of listen to their fans by not putting every single game at 7:30 p.m. slot. I mean, that's been one of the biggest criticism when it comes to these games, and I, I myself are kind of one of them because it's not easy to try to keep track of every single game in such a short amount of period, to a point where there's just simply no way I can have a situation where there's like 10 games at the same time, and I can keep track of every single game. Now, what they're saying is that they're going to have like kind of a feature match in a different time slot, which it sounds kind of enticing to hear that. But then you remember this is kind of what they did, at least in the beginning of the season as well. So I don't think that's kind of enticing as well. But one thing I will say is I'm really hoping when it comes to the schedule that's going to be released next year, or well, not next year, tomorrow that is, but next year in terms of the season as well. I hope the schedule is a little bit more spread out, because I do think that it's better to spread things out instead of just kind of putting up a bunch of games in there. I mean, they can still do that even if it's for MLS 360 purpose, but just don't put like 10 games at the same time. At least spread some of the games out, have some in the afternoon window, because not only it helps me in general, I think a lot of fans are kind of tired of the fact that all their team play at nighttime, because 7:30 might not sound like a late time, but it is when you're trying to bring the families out, and usually when the families does come to these games, they want to go there in the daytime rather than being at a nighttime, as pretty much what every single game has been for the last two seasons. And then now moving on to news that actually is not related to MLS, but I want to just kind of bring up, and that of course is USL. They are actually looking to expand to Springfield, Missouri. I'll tell you what, if they do eventually expand to Springfield, Missouri, they have to name something related to the Simpsons, because it kind of makes sense. If you're gonna bring a team in Springfield, you got to name something related to the Simpsons. Consider that's literally what the city is called, that the Simpsons are based in. But all kidding aside, this is exciting to see another team base in a region that people have said that the area around there, it's that there are fans that is interested in soccer, especially that area is not that far from St. Louis, and we know how much of a soccer culture that St. Louis has had for a very long time. So yeah, we'll see whether or not if that is the case, and we'll also see whether or not if Springfield is going to be going to the USL Championship or the USL League One. Now, Grand Rapids, they are going to announce that they're going to be launching a team in the MLS Next Pro starting in 2027, and this is after they reported that they are going to be building their own soccer specific stadium as well. So yeah, that should be very interesting to see. I know some people think that this is a little bit over ambitious from Grand Rapids of decided to build themselves a soccer specific stadium, especially a 7,500 seats, almost a size of a USL Championship side soccer specific stadium. They don't play in the second tier, instead they play in the MLS Next Pro as a developed team. But there's one thing we know about the MLS Next Pro, is that especially for individual team that is not an affiliate with another team, it can still draw a crowd to those games as well, especially when you build yourself a soccer specific stadium as well. And there's no doubt this is I feel like with the way that MLS, I know that they look at MLS Next Pro as a development league for MLS, but let's be honest, it feels like this league is now starting to become more of a rival to the USL Championship, of the fact that, well, we're gonna put some smaller market and join in that league to really rival with the USL Championship as well, because the USL Championship have all these small market, and even some market that doesn't have an MLS team, and have them as a dominant league as well. But I feel like MLS Next Pro is trying to count and chat in the upcoming years. And then I also wanted to say finally a congratulations to the University of Vermont winning the college soccer national championship. Who saw that one coming, with the way that Vermont coming into the bracket, they weren't considered one of the favorites, and that's the beauty of college soccer. I think college soccer, when you look at the last couple of years, there has been some very unexpected winner in terms of that, in terms of the tournament. And the team that they actually beat is the team that was kind of one of the surprising teams just a couple of years ago, with Marshall not only appearing in their first college soccer national championship game, but end up winning it as well. So certainly congratulations to Vermont in terms of winning that championship. Certainly probably the brightest moment that this university has ever had, because I don't think this university has won a lot of championship in other sports as well. So yeah, this is definitely a big moment for the university, and most importantly, a big moment for for the state of Vermont as well. Vermont definitely has a good soccer culture as well. I know one of their team called Vermont Green something like that. That team is very heavily supported. I think that team currently plays in the MPSL, and we saw in the U.S. Open Cup they were selling out crowd every single game. They have a very good strong soccer culture, and in general, the New England region it has a very good soccer culture and kind of a very underrated soccer hotbed, just like what we see in the Cascadia region as well. And I wouldn't be surprised with one of their team based in the New England region, Portland, Maine. I wouldn't be surprised there could be some good support for that team once they go into the USL League One this season. But there you have it. That is pretty much it in terms of looking at this news of the week episode. As always, let me know in the comments below what do you think of these news, and if there's any news I didn't mention here on the board, let me know in the comments below as always. But until then, hope you guys enjoy this video, and I will see you guys next time.